Hey there, my name is Rudolph Nsang, and it is a good thing that you've come across this lesson. We are going to be talking on IELTS speaking today, and it is one of those sections in IELTS that is very easy to understand and also very easy to practice, and we are certainly going to look at that. And this is especially true for people who already speak English as a second language or as a foreign language, people who are already competent in English language, but just want to write the IELTS examination in order to prove their competency level in this language. Of course, you know, IELTS is not only for people who don't speak English at all. IELTS is for everyone who doesn't have English as their first language. In other words, everybody who comes from a country where English is not spoken by the majority, 75% and above of their population, has to write the IELTS examination if they have to travel for studies in an English-speaking country, or travel for work in an English-speaking country, including Canada, the United Kingdoms, the Netherlands, and Australia, and many other English-speaking countries that do accept the examination. My name is Rudolph Nsang. I am an IELTS instructor, and I've been helping students to prepare for the IELTS examination for over 6 years now. I am the founder of Dream Academy and also a lecturer at the University of Yaoundé 1 and ICT University in Yaoundé in Cameroon. So we are moving straight away to IELTS speaking, and first things first, we want to have an overview of this module of IELTS. The very first thing you want to know about IELTS speaking is that it is delivered in two different modes, and these modes include in-person speaking test and the video interview speaking test. And most often you get to know about this when you register for the examination. Just after you register and you receive an email giving you the test details, you can see on the speaking section what mode you will be taking, whether it's going to be in person, that means you'll be talking with a physical human being in front of you, or that's your examiner, or your examiner is going to be some physical human being, but not close to you, probably from some other country, and just interviewing you by means of the internet, online, just like a video call you can make on WhatsApp or Google Meet or so. Well, there is a specialized program for that, which helps, which the British Council has put in place to help both candidates and examiners have better experiences doing interview from a distance. Of course, you do not really choose this. The British Council does that for you. For every examination date, there is a particular mode, assigned to it. It's only after you register for a test that you can, know specifically what kind of, what mode you will be taking. Secondly, the time allowed for IELTS speaking is 11 to 14 minutes. And it actually has 3 parts. So you have part 1, part 2, and part 3, where part 1 is 4 to 5 minutes, part 2 is 3 to 4 minutes, and part 3 is also 4 to 5 minutes. One thing you need to note before we continue is that the IELTS speaking takes place days before the other sections, that is listening, reading, and writing, if you choose the paper-based session. This is effective in almost all countries in the world. In Cameroon, that's the case, and other countries such as Bangladesh, France, many other countries, the same thing. So if you chose the paper-based session, in the earlier videos we talked about IELTS being delivered on paper and on computer. So if you chose IELTS on paper, then you will likely be doing the speaking. It could be 5 days before, 4, 3, or 2 days. Sometimes it's even a day after you finish writing the other sections, listening, reading, and writing. Okay, yeah, so take note of that. Yes, so It goes for 11 to 14 minutes with 3 parts. Now let us look at the parts, the different parts of the speaking exercise. Part 1, I earlier said, goes for 4 to 5 minutes, and it is an interview or dialogue. Now when we say interview or dialogue, we simply mean that the examiner is going to be asking you questions and you will be responding to those questions spontaneously. So you won't have time to think before speaking. In some other examination, like let's take the TOEFL examination, for all the questions, you are often given 15 seconds, in other cases 30 seconds to think, and you can even make notes before speaking. But with IELTS, that is not effective in part 1. Well, we are going to see that being effective in part 2, but for part 1, it is an interview dialogue, so they ask you a question and you respond spontaneously. Whatever question they ask you, you need to respond to that question. Now, what comprises of this first part? You're going to have about 7 questions, and this will be beginning with you saying your name. So they may ask you, all right, what's your name? And you have to say your name, and they'll move ahead to ask you, how can I call you? Okay, the examiner wants to know what or which of your names they can use to call you. Because when they ask you what is your name, they want to know your full name. Okay, so you may want to respond like, well, my name's Rudolph Nchanjin Sang, or in some other way, I am called Rudolph Nchanjin Sang, or Rudolph Nchanjin Sang. And then the examiner is going to ask you how you would prefer that they call you. So for me, for example, I would want an examiner to call me Rudolph. Okay, so I just say Rudolph. All right, good. So, and after that, you're going to have other questions. Take note that the questions here are often personal, which simply means that, let me see if I get this. Yeah, so the questions here are often personal, which simply means that they are going to be using words like you, and of course, you, the candidate, is supposed to answer by using the personal pronoun I or mine. Now, even me, okay? Now, this is simply because most of the times when they ask people questions that require them to give information about themselves, or things that are personal to them, in most cases they at some point begin to use the personal pronoun you, like referring to the other person or the person that answered the question. Whereas it makes more sense and it is more personal when you answer such personal questions using personal pronouns like I, my, me, and so. For example, if someone asks you the question, where do you like to go to in your free time? You say, well, I like to go to a place called Boissy Anastasie. It is a place in Yaoundé. When you go there, you can find trees and nice spaces where you can see. Now, it's not about you again. You're kind of pushing the thing to the person that has a question to you, and it is not, it doesn't give, it doesn't inspire trust, if I may put it that way. It doesn't inspire trust, and of course may have a play on how the examiner perceives you, and consequently have a play on your marks. Okay, so you just want to create a very good impression by being personal when it comes to personal questions or questions that require personal information from you. Next thing you need to know is that all questions in this section are closely related. So if the section is talking about sleep, for example, all the questions will be related to sleep. Okay? If it's talking about animals, all the questions will be related to animals. So it kind of helps the candidate to be free. That's when talking. Okay. Again, not to think too much when talking, because they just want you to be able to flow. Okay. Next thing, when a question in this section says describe, it means that the candidate has to give the main or major features or characteristics or structures of something, place, or idea. So if I ask you to describe a place you like to go to in your free time, okay, you want to let me see this place by talking. You want to paint a mental picture of this place in such a way that me, the examiner, who's not been there, I get kind of an avant-goût of how the place looks like, because the word describe simply means a visual image. Okay, so describe a place you like to go to in your free time. I may want to say, all right, a place I like to go to in my free time is called Bois-Saint-Anastasie. It is a beautiful tourist destination located at the heart of the beautiful town of Yaoundé in Cameroon. At the entrance, there is security box where people get to register and pay their entry fees. And once inside, on the northern part of it, there is a restaurant. You want to give us that information. On the east part of it, at the center, there are trees. There is a stream passing through this beautiful location, and so on. I want to see. I don't want you to tell me why you like the place. No, I want to see this place by listening to you. So take note of that. Let's move on to looking at an example of closely related questions that could be posed to you in part 1. So you see, this, for example, talks on sleep. And the first question says, how many hours sleep a night do you usually get? So it's about you, it's personal. Second says, would you consider yourself a morning person or an evening person? And the third says, which things can often stop you sleeping well or from sleeping well? And lastly, do you always dream? And do you ever dream in English? Now, the examiner has the discretion to ask you these questions based on how you get to respond. But the examiner knows that you need to answer these questions within 4 to 5 minutes. So you don't control the time, you don't see the time. The examiner controls the time and sees the time, and of course can tell you to stop or can tell you to continue speaking, as long as you fall within this time frame. All right, part 2 of the speaking exercise is a long turn or a monologue. It means that you're leaving from an interview or dialogue where you're being posed questions that you need to respond spontaneously to a section where you will be talking for long. We call it the long turn. You'll be talking for long, yeah, and you will be talking alone during this long period. And what is this long period? It is 2 minutes, okay? So you will have to talk about a topic for 1 to 2 minutes. Now, preferably, it is better to talk for 2 minutes. Why? Because you will not see the time. You won't see the countdown. Only the examiner sees the countdown. So it happens that sometimes candidates get to talk for 30 seconds, and it feels to them like they have been speaking for the past 5 hours, okay? So they stop thinking, all right, maybe they're around 1 minute or 1 minute 30 seconds or so. And before they realize, the examiner is saying nothing. Remember, it is a monologue. So the examiner will not say anything until your 2 minutes elapses. So they realize that, okay, the examiner is saying nothing for longer than they had spoken. You see, that is dangerous. So the best thing which you want to do is to always talk for up to 2 minutes. In fact, talk until your time goes up, until the examiner tells you to stop. Okay? Now, you are going to have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. Of course, if you have to talk for 2 minutes straight, you need some little time to think. And you can also make some notes, okay? You can make some notes to help you if you wish. Now, in Cameroon, for example, ever since after the COVID-19 virus or pandemic came about, they ask candidates to come along with their pens. Most often a black pen or black pens. But in the speaking part 2 session, they are going to give you a piece of paper, a small piece of paper on which you can make your notes. So you have your pen and they give you a little piece of paper on which you can write, jot down something. Now, this note that you have to write down, it's not like, very, very long notes, just 1 or 2 words, okay? Just 1 or 2 words that can help you, that can serve as prompts, for you to remember the question. Now, generally, they give you a topic and supporting questions. Let us look at this example. This will be given to you. But even before this is given to you, as what is being called a cue card, okay? They call this a cue card. This whole, stuff is called a cue card. So they give it to you in a small cue card. And yeah, before that is being given to you, the examiner is going to read out this. What we have here in bold, it says, describe something of great value that you own. Now, that is all what the examiner will tell you. And then the examiner is going to ask you, are you ready? If you say yes, then they are going to time you, they put you on a countdown of 1 minute. Before that countdown starts, they are going to give you this cue card. And then you will have to make your notes at this point. We are going to see a sample note in the next slide. Now that you have seen the sample note, it is important for you to do as many exercises on your own as possible. You can use your phone, or you can, work with somebody who's probably going to time you and give you the cue card and so on. One thing you need to take note of is that once you've made your notes for 1 minute, the question or the cue card will be taken away from you. So you will only be left with your notes. Make sure you do your notes within the 1 minute given to you. Make good use of the 1 minute given to you. Another thing which you need to take note of is this. After you stop speaking, the examiner then asks 1 or 2 questions about the topic. Now, this is at the discretion of the examiner. You can ask 1 or 2 random questions relating to what you've said, that's relating to your response, or relating to the question. And you need to answer that. Remember, you will not be given time to think in this case. It will just be like in part 1 where you had an interview or dialogue. So the examiner will just ask you 1 or 2 questions, and then you need to answer spontaneously. For example, have you ever lost something very valuable or broken it? Now, this question or questions are always in line with the topic in section 2. Let us move over to part 3, which also goes for 4 to 5 minutes and is equally an interview or dialogue. In this section, you'll have about 5 to 7 questions, sometimes 4, and sometimes it could go above 7. Questions in this section are drawn from the subject matter in part 2. So if part 2 talked about a zoo, for example, or a park, part 3 could draw on that by expatiating a little more on animals and wildlife and so on. In the case of our part 2, what we just did, talking about valuable items or so, part 3 could draw around wealth, around possessions, personal possessions, and so on. Third thing you need to know here is that the questions here are often not intended to get personal information about the candidate. Rather, they often seek information about the candidate's experience at the community level. And this means that the questions will often include words like people in your community, people in your town, your city, your country, their, them, and so on. And of course, it is not like part 1 where they're asking questions requiring personal information about you. Here, you will have to be talking as a member of a community. For example, wealth. And these questions on wealth and possessions follow what we earlier had in part 2. And you can see here, there are up to 6 questions. And of course, you will have to answer each of these questions spontaneously after the examiner asks them to you. The questions in section 3 are not often that easy to approach, if I may put it that way. I'm not saying that they are difficult, though, but I'm saying that they often require candidates to be open, or again, open-minded, talking about what happens around them. For example, do you consider your country wealthy? Why or why not? Now, you won't be talking about you or about if you consider yourself worthy or your family worthy. No, this time around it's going to be about your country. And you may want to bring, allusions or draw allusions from different things and bring examples from different facets of your society and so on. So you always need to be kind of open-minded in this section. Okay? The last question here, for example, says, what does the term materialistic society mean to you? We are going to talk about questions like this that candidates are often afraid of. They often feel that in the IELTS examination, they want to know if they are intelligent or not. No, that's not what IELTS is all about. The speaking section of the IELTS examination is all about speaking. Okay? So you must not know what the term materialistic society means. However, if you know, good, you move ahead. And if you are wise, for example, you may want to, combine what materialistic, which comes from materialism, is, and of course, society. So if you have a society that is materialistic, it may probably mean a society that gives more value or preference to material things, okay? So they just want you to speak. They don't really want to know if you are an economic student or some development specialist, okay? All right, let's move on. And this is the most important part, the nota benes. Number one, listen carefully. Throughout the exercise, you want to listen carefully. Throughout the exercise, you want to listen carefully. Next, speak at length. Sometimes we use the jargon, speak until they stop you. It's not the must you get to speak until they stop you, but just means that you should always speak at length, speak a little more. Now, if you listen carefully to the question, it's going to help you to understand what they're asking, and it's also going to help you to be able to give full information, and when necessary, you may have to give extra information. For example, if they ask you, what is the capital of your country? Okay? It is easy if you're in the community to answer by saying, let's talk of Cameroon, Yaoundé. You can just say, okay, Yaoundé. Or, yeah. Okay? Or for France, you could just say Paris. But no, they don't want to get the answer. They want you to speak. They are triggering you to speak. Okay? Now, so it would be better, for example, to say, I am Cameroonian. The capital of my country is Yaoundé. It is located in the center region, and it's a very beautiful place. It's generally very hot. However, people like the place so much because that's where all the administrative aspects of the country takes place, and it's a very prosperous city where everybody who goes there either makes it or keeps the hope of making it in life. I'm just trying to add something. Okay, we may even go more geographical. Okay, so you may want to say, all right, it's a city that has over 3 million people, and main activities are agriculture, and nobody cares about the information which you're giving, whether it is correct that Yaoundé has 3 million people or that it is whatsoever. Nobody really cares. The main thing that you want to do is to speak, give full information about Yaoundé, which is, of course, it's a geographical question, and you can also give extra information about Yaoundé. The main thing is that you get to speak English language. Okay? Good. Next, you want to use specialist vocabulary. And I am going to add here that you don't want to be too repetitive. For example, if you meet two medical doctors talking, certainly you can easily decipher that these are medical doctors based on the kind of words they use, based on the kind of concepts they will be talking about. Now, how is this effective in IELTS? If they ask you a question about the beach, for example, they want you to use words that relate to the beach. That's a proof that you have the vocabulary around the beach, because that's what they want to know. If they ask you questions relating to the mountain, you want to use words that, will generally be used on the mountain or when talking about the mountain. If they ask you a place you like to go to your free time, they want to get information about maybe attractions, tourist attractions, or about locations. So you want to use, those geographical terms that, may describe that place better. Let's take an example of a question. Would you like to live on the mountain or on the beach? A good candidate may respond like this. I prefer to live on the beach. It's one of these places in the world that kind of make people come alive. First of all, having the chance to interact with people coming from different parts of the world or different parts of the country is very important. Beaches generally attract tourists who want to come have a good time. Some of them would want to get some nice sun bath. Some of them would just want to hang around with bikinis and just sip some coconut juice or sleep under an umbrella on a sunbed, or probably just get to meet new people and listen to their different languages and so on. Others are attracted by fresh fish caught from the sea, and others just want to have a nice boat ride. For me, for example, I really love beach football, also beach volleyball, and I equally love the sound of the waves. Now, well, I may have gone a little far, okay, or I may have talked a little more, bringing out some of those words, but you can actually get most of the words around the beach. We talked about sand, waves, boats, beach football, beach volleyball, umbrellas, sunbed, sunbath, new languages, tourists, bikini, making new friends, okay, sea breeze, and so on. Now, these are words that relate to the sea. But if you just give a random answer, like, well, I like the beach so much. The beach is a very nice place. It's so beautiful. I prefer to live there because whenever I'm on the beach, I'm so alive. It makes me so happy. That is no answer, okay? Because this same answer can be given to the mountain. For example, well, the mountain is a very nice place. It's a very beautiful place. Whenever I go to the mountain, I feel so alive. I just feel so happy. I really love the mountain atmosphere. That is no answer, okay? So you always want to use specialist vocabulary. I hope you got that correct. And lastly, you want to be confident. Well, lastly, for this particular slide, there are more nota bendes coming up. So you want to be confident, and to be confident here means you want to be as relaxed as possible by maintaining your eye contact. You want to smile, of course, when it's necessary. I'm not saying you get to smile all through. You want to be audible. Take note, apart from the examiner who's going to be in front of you, there is going to be a recording of your voice. In some cases, it is a video recording of you speaking, so that other examiners could, grade you in order to have a final grade. Okay, so you want to be audible enough so that the examiner in front of you can get you, and of course those who are going to listen to your voice afterwards can also have the chance to listen to you properly. Lastly, use gestures. This is also a sign of confidence. Okay, I'm not saying you have to be conducting all through when you're speaking. No, at some point you may want to use gestures to illustrate certain emotions or so. Above all, still on the nota bendes, you want to be creative but constructive, or be truthful, but this is very important, keep speaking. Yeah, be creative but keep speaking. So no matter what question they ask you, you just want to say something, and you can be creative about it, but make sure that you're logical. That means you're constructive. Or you can say, for example, you can be truthful, like, well, I don't know. For example, we earlier saw the question which said, what does the term materialistic society mean to you? An IELTS candidate can respond to that confidently by saying, well, I really don't know what materialistic society is, but I just want to think that materialistic comes from the word materialism. Maybe it is a society that focuses on material things or so. I'm just trying to say something. I'm just trying to speak. I'm trying to speak English language. That is the main thing. That is what they want from you. So whether you're being creative and constructive, or you're being truthful. The main thing is that you should keep speaking. Keep speaking. Very important. Next, avoid a chaotic mind and concentrate on the moment. Many candidates go to the IELTS hall and they are just kind of lost. Just kind of lost, okay? So you don't just want to be lost. You want to avoid the chaotic mind as much as possible. Be present in the hall. Be present with your examiner, and follow through, and like do the first nota bene we talked about. Listen carefully, okay? Next, avoid answering questions by repeating them or by repeating the questions. For example, an examiner asks you, what do you like to do in your free time? And you start by answering, well, in my free time, I like to dance. Well, that's not very, very good. It's not very charismatic, You may want to say, dancing is an activity I really love, and I do this always when I am free. And you continue going on, okay? So you don't just want to answer the questions by repeating or by using, the same phrases that the examiner used in asking the question. And also, the examiner can repeat a question and not explain. Take note of that. If you do not understand what the examiner says, it is your cup of tea. But if you do not hear what the examiner says, you can ask the examiner to repeat. For example, sorry, madam, I didn't hear you. Can you please repeat the question? And of course, the examiner is going to repeat the question. But you don't also have to do this over and over. That's why we earlier said, listen carefully. Again, avoid repetition of words, phrases, and sentences. I really cannot overemphasize on this. Avoid repetition of words. Whatever repetition you can do, just avoid that, okay? Now, let us try to implement the rules we just discussed by answering these questions. I am going to give you some time to do these exercises. You can answer these two questions. They are just random two questions. I would say either part 1 or part 3 questions, okay? So you just need to respond to them spontaneously. If there's somebody around you, you may want to ask this person to help pose these questions to you one after the other. If there's nobody around you, you can use your phone. That's the selfie camera of your phone, okay? And record yourself speaking, okay? So you just need to look at the question and then you click on the video recorder of your phone and you record yourself speaking so that you can listen after that again. And of course, autocorrect yourself. So I'm going to give you some time to do this before we continue. Welcome back. Okay, let us move on to this homework. And this is where we are likely going to be ending. First thing I would like you to do is to make short videos in which you answer random part 1, part 2, and part 3 questions. You should have received the study materials, that's the books already. The books that we give to students on this platform are generally comprising of question and answers. But for the for the speaking module, you receive a book with only questions. So what you want to do is randomly answer part 1, part 2, and part 3 questions, okay, based on what we earlier talked about. And also, you want to use the selfie camera of your phone to record videos. Or if you live around people, if you live in the home with people, or you're at work, or wherever you can find yourself, your friends and so on, they can help you to administer some of those questions. Next, I want you to answer as many questions as possible. And after recording each video, I want you to listen to it and make amendments in subsequent videos. So always give time for autocorrection. Listen to yourself talking. Listen to yourself expressing ideas, and also watch yourself talking. This will really help boost your confidence because it will help you know how you look when you speak. Okay? And lastly, I want you to share these videos with your tutor. You can share them with me or other tutors on this platform, or you can also share them with your classmates and your friends. Okay, whoever can watch your videos and then give positive criticisms to them, good, you're good to go. Okay, with such people. So just make sure that some other person watches you or listens to you speaking. That is very important, and that's going to help you to have wonderful grades in the speaking module. This is where we are going to end. Thank you so much for having followed up all through to the end of this module, the speaking module. Take note of this one thing. Speaking is all about speaking. They only want you to speak. Whatever question they ask you in the IELTS speaking module or IELTS speaking section, just answer, just speak, just say something. That is what makes the magic. See you in the next video.